The climate activist group Extinction Rebellion has kicked off worldwide protests, warning of an environmental apocalypse. Here in Berlin, protesters gathered at dawn to block streets in the city's center. Over the next 2 weeks, civil disobedience actions, where protesters attempt to peacefully paralyze cities, are planned in 60 cities around the world. Protesters want greenhouse gas emissions to be cut to zero by 2025. We now go to our correspondents in London and here in Berlin. Let's start with Birgit Maas, who is joining us there on the streets of London. Birgit, I understand that protests are just getting underway there. What's the situation on the streets?
Well, I'm here in the government district in London, and protesters are blocking several sites in and around the government district. They're trying to block it. What you can see going on behind me is that protesters have been trying to put up tents and other structures, and police have then calmly taken the same structures down. So it seems it's a little bit like a back and forth. So protesters try to put things up, and then again police put things down. I've also seen one young gentleman arrested, and there's been media reports that there have been so far 21 arrests all over London. Now, the last time there was a big protest in London was at the beginning of the summer, before the summer, and police have not been very heavy-handed. However, today I've seen here in London a lot of police on the streets, and they have also announced that they will arrest people. So the question is how many protesters will want to be arrested or will be willing to be arrested. But it seems that it's just going underway, and it's a bit of a battle, but a very peaceful battle at the moment between what the protesters want and what the police want.
Okay, a number of arrests already in in London, and a massive police presence. Simon Young is our correspondent on the street here in Berlin. Simon, what are you seeing there?
Terry, I'm standing here at the Victory Monument. That's not far from the Brandenburg Gate in the centre of Berlin. It's a key traffic roundabout, and the protesters, several hundred of them who've been here since the early morning, have managed to block traffic from passing through here. I can show you the scene. It's an empty street. Normally this would be full of heavy traffic, buses, lorries and cars at this time of day. Today there's nothing. And also the atmosphere here, rather different to what Birgit's describing in London. There have been no arrests. The police are holding off. They're taking a watch and wait approach. And the atmosphere among protesters is peaceful, non-violent. The people are singing songs and chanting slogans. And you can probably see behind me there, they've been building this sort of Noah's Ark that they've been painting pink. That's going to be the central focus of the demonstrations here today.
Now, these protests have been anticipated, of course. We caught up with some of the activists in the German capital here as they made their preparations for this week of protests. Let's take a look.
This is how environmental activists from Extinction Rebellion are preparing for the protests. One of them is 28-year-old Luca Ahlers. The activists undergo training in how to behave when blocking a road and when being removed by the police. Ahlers and the other activists are demanding more climate protection action from governments. That includes a call for a climate emergency to be declared. To make their point, the activists want to paralyze transport in Berlin. Luca Ahlers says she's willing to be arrested if necessary.
This is the only way to show how serious we are. It's not sufficient anymore to simply wave flags and demonstrate. We need to make clear how bad the situation is. And I think it will be highly symbolic if we are willing to be arrested and have our freedom curtailed.
Extinction Rebellion was founded in 2018 and claims to have activists in around 50 countries. Their protest method is civil disobedience, peaceful but sometimes illegal and provocative. To illustrate the effects of climate change, the activists even dyed a river in Switzerland green. The dye was harmless, but the campaign got a lot of attention and polarized opinion. the protesters have pitched their tents in Berlin. Not just anywhere, but right in the heart of the government district. Their expected roadblocks have provoked mixed reactions from Berliners.
I think it's bad. We need to find a sensible solution. A broad consensus in society is what we're after, and extremism doesn't help.
I don't know what they're going to achieve, apart from creating more traffic, which isn't very climate-friendly.
They should do it. It's not a problem. We need to do something about it, don't we?
Extinction Rebellion only released a partial list of which parts of Berlin it intends to shut down. The protest will last a week, but for many, the climate fight is a long-term commitment. Alles, who previously worked as a psychologist, has decided to live off her savings and dedicate herself full-time to the campaign.
Pursuing a career is becoming more and more irrelevant if you look at the broad context. Our work here is very important, so I can't imagine doing anything else at this moment.
Luca Ahle's dream is that soon governments around the world will listen to her and her peers. And it's that goal that Extinction Rebellion want to raise awareness for over the coming days.
Birgit, this isn't the first time that Extinction Rebellion has staged protests in London. What do Londoners make of it?
Well, I've been speaking to people that are passing by this particular protest, and admittedly, very randomly, I've stopped passers-by, I've stopped cyclists, and my opinion is, my impression is that most are broadly supportive, particularly the people who are cycling past. This is a it's a route it's used often by cyclists in the morning in and out of work, one of the big sort of routes into the city, and the cyclists are very supportive of the protest. However, I've also spoken to some others, and one lady said she does understand where they're coming from, but on the other hand they are blocking the roads, and of course London is a very busy city and they are blocking major traffic arteries, and that would hinder people also who are already traveling in a greener way, for example, by buses. So some people do object to the methods, that's for sure.
Birgit, thank you very much for now. That's Birgit Maas for us in London. And here in Berlin, we had Simon Young, our political correspondent, out on the streets. Thanks to you both very much. And for more on the protest, we're joined by Dr. Claire Wordley. She's a zoologist and research associate at the University of Cambridge, and she's also an active supporter of Extinction Rebellion. Good to have you with us. First of all, Dr. Wordley, tell us in a nutshell what Extinction Rebellion is and what makes it different from other movements like Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future.
Thank you. Well, to begin with, of course, we share a lot of the same aims as Fridays for Future, which is to get the world to take serious action, to get governments to take action on climate change and on other ecological crises. But with Fridays for Future, this is just school children. There's not much role for adults there other than coordinating. So with Extinction Rebellion, this is adults saying we don't just leave this to the children. We are also going to protest. And it's a grassroots movement. It's decentralised, meaning that anyone can, if they abide by the principles, they can call themselves Extinction Rebellion, they can go forwards. We have a lot of connections across all the different countries. We speak with each other, but we're not, for example, told what to do by the London Extinction Rebellion or so on. Berlin takes its own actions. And we make our points by using civil disobedience. OK, this week your group is staging a series of demonstrations all around the world, 60 cities, I understand, including Berlin. What are you hoping to achieve with these actions? So we've already kicked off in Berlin with a protest which started at 4 a.m. this morning. And we're hoping to do a variety of things. Firstly, to show the public how absolutely serious these crises are. I think it's very easy to forget about climate change and ecological collapse because they're not very nice things to think about. We don't want to read about them all the time. And by disrupting, we bring it to the forefront of people's attention. We also bring it to the forefront of government's attention and show them that the people, that the citizens are not going to take this lying down, that we want stronger action, that we have been trying for many years to get this through different means, and that that now the time has come where we actually go out and we stand in the streets and stay there until action is taken.
So you're trying to draw attention to the urgency of this. The language that you use goes in the direction of apocalypse. We need to be, and something needs to be done now. How far, given the urgency of it, do you think it's reasonable to push your agenda? What are the limits of civil disobedience for you?
So for Extinction Rebellion as a whole, we have a set of guiding principles. One of those very important principles is non-violence. So we would never say that violence in any form is ever justified. So we remain within the scope of non-violent actions. So, for example, this includes things like roadblocks, gluing ourselves to particular buildings of particular companies or particular ministries or departments, and causing disruption, but in a usually quite a playful manner, and not causing any harm to any living thing.
Do you have faith in liberal democracy, like we have here in Europe for the most part, to achieve what you believe is necessary in order to avoid the collapse of our society and our ecosystem?
It's a very interesting question. So I think one thing is that I do have faith in democracy and I do believe in democracy, but I think that in many cases our democracy is subverted by special interests. So if you look at, for example, the influence of lobbyists in the US, oil and gas industry spent over 120 million in 2018 alone lobbying the government. Here in Europe, we have lobbyists from the oil and gas industries, from the coal industry, from the automobiles industry. And these industries actually take rights away from citizens. So we see across Europe, most people want environmental protections in the polls that have been conducted. But I think that democracy needs to be a truer democracy and go back more to the people. And that's why Extinction Rebellion calls for citizens' assemblies with randomly chosen citizens informed by science to take decisions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Claire Wordley. She's with Extinction Rebellion. She's a zoologist, a researcher at the University of Cambridge. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.